In the event that something should happen to me, I leave this note for you. Dearest wife, Tomeo, and my 9 children, to my family, which I have not forgotten even for a moment since my incarceration by the police force on March 7, 1942. I say, please do not cry out in sorrow. If I were not able to return home because of some unexpected misfortune that may befall upon me by just deeming it as our destiny. Honouliuli is significant to our community, especially for people who really don't know anything about the internment camps here.
The reason why Honouliuli is really important as a significant site, a couple reasons. Number one, it was the largest and longest used incarceration site in the state during the then territory of Hawaii. Though there were incarceration sites in all the main Hawaiian islands, after December 7th, when Pearl Harbor was attacked, people were arrested immediately.
Prior to the war, military officials had created a pickup list of suspected individuals who they feared would be the ones immediately guilty of espionage. So they would have an A list and a B list of those to be immediately picked up in the event of war.
That released all restraints on anti-Japanese sentiment that had been brewing in this country for years. So the Japanese became the targets of racial hysteria, they became the targets of discrimination. And I remember my mother telling us that she and her family were so afraid. They were so afraid of what would happen to them because they were Japanese and we were now at war with Japan, that they gathered Japanese things in their home. Things such as toys and books and clothing, I would imagine, and they burned them because they were so afraid of what would happen to them.
So when Pearl Harbor happened, it came as great surprise to everyone that lived on the islands. So in the hours following the Pearl Harbor attack, we see kind of this immediate pickup of these Japanese suspects. Almost 800 Japanese Americans would be essentially rounded up by civil and military officials, FBI officials, the police department, Army officials, rounded up and be sent to essentially certain sites, for example, like Sand Island Detention Center or the Immigration Center, to be processed, basically interviewed, contained, and later shipped off to essentially confinement sites.
At the time of the war, Hawaii's population was almost 40% Japanese ancestry. And so it was logistically, would have been really challenging to move almost 40% of the population into prisons. So as a result, it wasn't whole families that were moved. It was selective incarceration, where the military picked up people that were leaders in the community, school teachers, religious leaders, people who worked for the newspaper, people who worked in the territory state government. So it was individuals, men and women as well. So mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, they were arrested. Unlike the mainland, it was martial law that gave authorities the ability to pick people up with no evidence, with no due process for your rights as a citizen of the US. And the reason why that was different was because on the mainland, it was under Executive Order 9066 that moved entire families off of the West Coast. People who were arrested had no lawyers. Usually they were under military hearings that sentenced them to places like Honouliuli. These hearings lasted less than 5 minutes. They were never told what they were being arrested for.
It housed people from Hawaii. I guess the government felt that they were a threat to the government, and so they were taken and they were interned there, and my father happened to be one of them. It's opened on March 1st of 1943. My father, I believe, gets incarcerated like March 15th or something, shortly after Honouliuli is opened. He knew he didn't do anything wrong. He said, I pay my taxes. Because, I'm thinking, well, that's really telling, you can take, and he's my role model. He was my role model.
My grandfather was interned at Honouliuli. They arrested him at their home in Pauilo, Hawaii, and was brought to Kilauea military campgrounds. And from there, he was sent to Honolulu, to Sand Island, and then finally to Honouliuli. I think the reason why my grandfather was arrested was because he was connected to the Buddhist church and the Japanese language school. The medical problems that he had, one was high blood pressure. When he went to Honolulu, his condition worsened. He was on the way to Tripler Hospital, and he passed away. Yes.
It was a mixed prison. Again, predominantly POW, but also over 400 U.S. civilians and citizens. I think the other part of that makes this story very different is that it was a segregated army that watched over and guarded Honouliuli. It was hot, sweaty, humid, mosquitoes. They had to share facilities, clearly, multiple beds in one. I don't want to call them homes because they were basic wooden structures that they were in. The POWs were intense. They had only cold showers and cold water and pit toilets, whereas the civilian side had a little bit more infrastructure. They did have hot water, they did have a dispensary and a post office.
The conditions at Honouliuli, and the reason why they chose that location, I feel, is because there was very little contact from the outside, where you could not, because it was in a gulch and there was just hills around it that you could not even see in.
Even the geography is very different compared to the other Japanese American confinement sites.
How did they manage to survive in that environment? First of all, to become very close-knit. I think they just find each other as soulmates. They find music, they find opportunities to grow things. My father ends up, I forget how much they made, like so many cents an hour, but he's responsible for counting spoons and forks in the cafeteria because somebody apparently tried to make a knife or something, and so they have to make sure that the number of utensils that are handed out to the people that are eating is the same number that comes back. So that's his job.
Had I been born a generation earlier, it could have been me and my mom that were arrested and taken here. And not knowing why, how long we would be there.
None of the Japanese internees here in Hawaii or on the mainland were ever found guilty of sabotage or espionage or any other overt acts against the United States.
I think the first step is just knowing about the history. And I think from there, how they engage with the history, we can offer many, many opportunities to do that. Websites, coming to classrooms to do presentations, inviting school groups to the park to learn more about the history and actually see the historic features and see and experience what it must have been like to be imprisoned there.
I am not an advocate of burying anything because I don't feel that it will serve any purpose when we forget about things, especially if we don't want things to happen again.
Honouliuli is just representative of the broader picture of what happens when fear and hysteria and whatever it is that war causes, and it doesn't have to necessarily be war, then you make assumptions about people because of their color of their skin or what you get as stereotypes.
These stories really do need to literally be unearthed, and I think that is a great contribution that Honouliuli will still provide for scholars, for community members, for families even still today.
Everybody's role in making sure that this history is known and alive and well and continues to be discussed and perpetuated forward is really important. It's just a very sad part of our history in America, but that's why it's important to conserve these places through the national park system, working with partners and communities and schools and communities to ensure that these stories aren't forgotten, because we want to make sure that their lives meant something in the end.